Hi, I'm Zaituna Skosan and I'm the collections manager here at Iziko for Karoo Palaeontology, and today we're going to talk about some extensive research that has been done in our collections by the lady sitting next to me.
I'm Caitlin Rabe. I'm a MSc Candidate at UCT in the Biological Sciences Department. And like Zaituna said, I've been working here extensively over the last year and a bit and into the future, hopefully, on the Diictodon collection.
So for those at home that don't know what a Diictodon is, would you be able to explain to them?
Of course. So here we actually have a beautiful little example of a Diictodon. Diictodons are a small burrowing species of reptile that lived in the Permian period, which is around 250 million years ago. So deep in our geological history, before the exciting dinosaurs were around. Not that that makes these little guys any less exciting, they fascinate me for sure. And we know them particularly well because they're associated with really beautiful spiral burrows. There's a gorgeous example here in the museum that people can see. The burrow becomes filled in with sediment and then it's preserved in time, which is amazing.
Okay. But since we have such an extensive fossil collection, why did you choose Diictodons as your project?
So I chose to work on Diictodon because I was really interested in Permian tetrapods. I know that I wanted to work on animals that lived in the Permian period. I think it's a very interesting point in geological history, just before one of our biggest mass extinction events and before all the amazing stuff that happens in the Triassic and the Cretaceous. It's a very key point in time. And I wanted to work on the Diictodons because of the collection here at Iziko. It's very rare that we get massive collections of one particular kind of animal in the fossil record. Fossilization is not something that happens easily. You know, only one in so many animals in a population will become a fossil in whatever time period they lived in. So for paleontologists, it's very exciting when we get a very abundant record of a particular animal, because it means you can do a really detailed study. And we have thousands of Diictodon specimens, which is incredible, and the museum here has a lot of those specimens.
Okay, so you're talking about studying them. What does your study of Diictodons entail?
Without wanting to bore people terribly and talk for much too long about very technical things, I'm interested to know more about their life, from the time they're born till the time they die. These little guys have been very well studied in, our contemporary history. We've got many generations of researchers who've worked here at the museum studying Diictodon. But I noticed that with the abundant specimens we had, there was like a really unique opportunity to study their ontogeny, which is basically just how they change and grow through the period of their life. So we have, as I said earlier, thousands of specimens of Diictodon skulls like this one. Not all of them are this beautiful. This one definitely is a prize specimen. And I'm looking at how the shape of their skull changes from the time they're neonates, they've just hatched or been born, we're not entirely sure, till the time they die. And that'll give me a really good idea of their behavior, their life history, their lifestyle, how they interacted, and it has interesting implications for all aspects of their life, their diet, how they moved, and particularly of interest is those beautiful burrows. Were they digging them early on in life, or did their parents have to sort of teach them how? These are all the kind of questions that we're wanting to uncover.
Okay. And out of the thousands, or I wouldn't say thousands, but close to 1,600 specimens.
Yeah.
Did you go through all of them?
I did. I unpacked many boxes. So yes, it was a long process, but I was grateful for it. It gave me a lot of time to work here in the collection, which was a great opportunity to be in the museum and to be around other people who work with the fossils all the time. I learned a lot. But I unpacked all the boxes because I needed to see what I was working with. And you can already see the difference between these two. They're preserved differently. So This one is preserved like from a side-on angle, basically. This one is preserved a little more from the top. And he's got a very interesting little dip in his skull there, which is not normal. Yeah. It's a deformation, which happens in the process of being fossilized. You know, the skull gets compressed in different ways. So I needed to dig through all those boxes to make sure that I was finding the best skulls possible, basically.
And out of the 1,600 specimens that you looked at, how many of them would you be able to use for your project or study?
So far, I'm using just over 100, 110, 120. And that's just because I'm looking for something very specific. I want the skulls to be as pristine as possible. So as unaffected by that kind of deformation as possible, because when I'm looking at how a skull changes over time, I want to know, you know, as I said, what did they look like when they were little and what did they look like when they were older? And if they're deformed like this, then it's difficult for me to understand if this is part of a natural progression in their life, or if this was something that happened to them post-mortem after they died and they were fossilized. So that's why I'm working with a much smaller selection of them. But that doesn't mean that the rest of those specimens aren't still really valuable and useful for other kinds of studies. And maybe moving forward in my research, I'm probably going to need to access some of those other specimens too for different, you know, angles and aspects of the project.
Okay. And your project,
yes.
Is it going to be, is it complete? Are you still working on it? What's happening long term?
Definitely still work in progress. Okay. So I started the work with Diictodons when I started my master's degree, and I'm actually in the process right now of trying to upgrade that degree to PhD level. And the reason I can do that is because there's so much to do with Diictodon. You know, I chatted with you and with other scientists here and with my supervisors at UCT, and we just realized that there was so much opportunity still with this beautifully abundant record that it was worthwhile spending more time on it. So hopefully a couple more years worth of digging through Diictodon boxes.
Okay. Since like I think I'm familiar with Diictodons and having to find them because we go on several field trips. So I think I found quite a few on like field trips that I've been involved in. Have you gone into the field and actually found?
I actually haven't. I've only been on one sort of paleontological field trip, I suppose you could call it. We went to Langebaanweg, to the fossil park there, which was very exciting. But I was mainly doing sort of surface level fossil surveys and helping them dig through their collection of invertebrate fossils, which was very fun. But yes, hopefully in the future, in a COVID permitting environment, I might be able to go and have a hunt for some Diictodons myself, which would be very exciting.
The other little joke I want to tell you about is that when we're on these field trips, and some field trips in particular, we would come across Diictodons and we would just sort of like pass them because
there's so many.
There's just so many.
There are so many.
It's just, or we would just sort of like mark them, and the scientists would then just take images of where exactly they are, but we wouldn't bring them back because it would be too many specimens for preparators to actually prepare. So
it's really an incredible phenomenon because you look at any other sort of group of animals across the geological history, and it's rare that you find one species that is just so abundant. And in this particular area as well, our South African Karoo Basin, I think Diictodons have been tentatively identified in China and in Russia, but it's tentative. They're not entirely sure if they actually were Diictodons. So as far as we're concerned, we sort of are home to the Diictodons, and certainly they've found a long-term home here at the museum where rows and rows of them are sort of carefully curated and looked after by you, and then occasionally somebody like me comes along and they get taken out of their boxes and worked on, which is amazing.
Well, Caitlin, thank you very much for explaining to us about your study and giving us a little bit more insight into the Diictodons that we have in our collection. And I'm looking forward to sort of like accommodating you and having you in the collections
Thank
in the
you.
future. So yeah,
It's an incredible opportunity for scientists from other academic institutions to come and work at a museum like this and to have access to these specimens, because without it, I wouldn't have a project. So thank you. It's been great.
Thanks.